So, do we have any new people today? Okay, 2. You're a bit late. 3, okay. Yeah, but we will start next cohort in 2 weeks. So if you want to join the next one, you can start from the beginning with the next cohort. Yeah, so skip that. Lesson 6. So today we have CSS Advanced Part 2. And we will talk about transition, 3D transformation, keyframes, parallax, how to do that with CSS, filters, which you can use for, for filters that you can use and apply for your elements, and CSS Grid. So this is the biggest part, CSS Grid for today. But as we always begin our lessons, let's start from the questions. So first question is, name me 5 semantic tags. Header. It's not semantic tag. Sorry? Section. Which one? Aside. Yes. Not semantic. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. What? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And one more. Nav. Yeah. Nav. Beautiful. Second question. What semantic tag do we use to make text italic? So remember that we have from HTML4 we have I tag. EM. Yes, correct. Semantic tag to make text bold. Strong. Yeah. Next one. Which 2 types of elements do we have in Flexbox? Remember, at the beginning of the presentation, we spoke about that we have flex and flex. Yep. And item. Yeah, flex container and flex item. Next thing is how to align element horizontally with flex. Which property do we use? Almost. So it's not aligning, but remember we have 2 ways of, so we can align elements horizontally and we can align elements vertically. So for, yeah, this is the next question. Horizontally. Sorry? No. Justify content. Yeah. So horizontal alignment is justify content, and you can specify center, space between, space around, space evenly, etc. What about vertical? Align items. Yeah. Align items. How to change direction for elements flow with Flexbox? I mean, here you have an answer. Change the Flexbox direction. So, flex direction. Pretty simple. Hey, sorry? Sorry? And you set, so flex direction, and you set column or row. But the property is flex direction. Yeah? Yeah. How to align only one element with Flexbox. And like vertical or horizontal, doesn't matter. Any. Yeah. Align self. This is for vertical alignment, and justify self for horizontal alignment. So take one element and align it. What flex wrap does? Come on, come on. So, yeah. Yep, correct. So by default, the Flexbox container try to fit all your children into one row. And if you want to this container to like have a few rows, you just use flex wrap. So now you enabling that multi-lines behavior. What options do we have for justify content? We already mentioned some, but yeah. What values? So justify content is vertical alignment, horizontal alignment, sorry. But what kind of options do we have? Space around. Space between. Center. And so if you want to put elements on the start, not just end, but flex end. Yeah, and the same for flex start. And I think the last one is default one, which is stretch. Yeah. Okay, glad that you remember everything. So yeah, let's start from transform. So we have a property in CSS which allows you to transform the shape of your image, of your element, actually. So if you go back, let me just show you an example, because for this lesson we also have all examples in our GitHub repository, so you can check all examples and code for them at home and revise everything. So yeah, this one. Styles, CSS index. Box transform. So I've added, remember that we can use a transition property to have some animation, like a transition between one state and another. And you basically set in how long it should take to move from one state to another. And so for transform elements, I want to change something on hover effect. So when I hover with my mouse on this box, I want to do something. So I'm not doing anything for now, but if I uncomment, let's say first one, I want to rotate for 90 degrees. Refresh my page, hover, and you rotate. So like all that stuff, all that animation things has been handled by JavaScript like 10 years ago. Now we moved from JavaScript and we like 95%, 99% of animation we are doing with CSS. We don't use JavaScript now. So yeah, rotate. We have, actually, I'm not sure that you can see this one, rotate X. So you're rotating in one coordinate. Let's actually see. So basically you're doing that. X, yeah. So you're rotating like this. Y. So you're rotating like that. And by default, if you use rotate, it will rotate on Y coordinate and X coordinate on both. So even if I do something like, let's say this one and this one, we have 90 degrees, and here we have 90 degrees. Ooh. Yeah, probably we need less. X, Y. Oh, right. The trick is that I'm redefining transform. Remember that if you use the same property name down, you're just redefining it. So that was rotate X, now it's rotate Y. To combine it, you just use this. And space. So you can, if you use different values, like 50 and Wait a sec. It's skewing, so 50 degrees is y. Is it minus? No? No, it is indifferent. So yeah, I believe that you can just combine. I never used that. So I'm never used like rotate x or rotate y separately, because I don't remember any use case that might need it. But normally you use rotate because you want to have. Actually, I need to. It's nice to play with this one. So you have something like that. You have, let's say, you have an image, which is arrow, and when you hover, it just turn left or right or down, whatever. So you can play with it. Yes. Give me a second. So next thing is translate. What translate does? Remember, we manually moved our images across the page. So translate moves our elements. And if I hover, I'm moving my element only on x coordinate for 50%. Right? This one, this number. So we're moving elements. And this one combined, so this first number is x, and the second number is y coordinate. So basically here we have x, which basically move horizontally, and we can have y, which will move it down. Yep. Scale. Scale actually is interesting and very useful. You'll use it quite a few times for sure. So again, you can scale in different directions in different proportions. So these number basically they are ratios to the default size. So let's say if I here I want to scale 1.2, so for 20%, right? 1.2 is plus 20%. It just grow on hover. And you might think that what is a use case? And one of them is when you have a button on the page, you hover on that, you can actually scale to 0.9, so it will like you'll imitate the effect of pressing. Or maybe you can have like 1.1, so it will grow a bit. And when you have active, when you press in the button, you will change it to minus 0.9, so you will imitate the effect of pressing because you will squeeze in your button. Actually, let's try to do the click, focus. Yeah, active will curse. So maybe I'll show it to you a bit later. So scale is pretty useful because it doesn't affect any side elements. So if you have two elements on the page on the same row, let's say you have one box here, with scale, it doesn't move the element on the left or right or anywhere. They stay on the same position. But if you use if you change the width and height, for example, to imitate the same. So if you hover, you change in height and width, it will affect all elements around. So if you don't want to affect any of them, just use scale. It will stay on the same position. Yeah. So the funny, tricky one that I've never used it, but for example, you can have like perspective and rotate. So you can have some some animation like that. Maybe you have some cards, list of cards, and you have another element, another div with an image behind, and you might want to have actually combine them have like for the top one, so you have image behind. You have top one, which is this card. So when you hover, you turn this section, the blue one, and slide it a bit, for example, and you see the whole image. When you remove your mouse, it will put it back, the card. So you can create like pretty complicated animation with CSS. Transition item. Yeah, so this is transform. We will get to transition in a second. So yeah, most popular properties, we have rotate. You can specify rotate in turns. So basically the whole turn is 360. So half turn, you can specify in degrees each one, but here you also can use degrees. I'm just showing that we can use different scales for the values. Pixels, percentage for transform, and like amps, basically anything, any value. We have translate, scale, and for scale we use just numbers. So this is a ratio based on the size it has by default. Yeah, there you can find the link to our GitHub files and the file where you can find all the code. But yeah, again, you can check it at home. Yeah, we have quite a few more. We have some rotate, 3D, and you can play with it whole day. Just check it at home. And actually, I want to show you an example. Here you can find a few examples. And here you have like a tool where you can build your animation or your transform values, play with it. Basically, here you can create an effect. Maybe it's hard to see that it is inside like a box with perspective, etc. And another one, yeah, this is crazy one. This is all CSS. I'm just clicking next. I mean the arrow right. So actually here they explain like everything about transition, transform. Can I scroll? Yeah, this one is crazy. All of that is CSS. Pretty fun. Check this link at home. That one is useful. Transition. So transition is basically the time, I already described that, that takes to move the element from one state to another. And here, for transition, I'll show you in a second. Ooh. We have quite a few properties. So you can specify what do you want to which property you want to apply your transition. So if you have height, defined height, you want to set apply transition for height. That should take half a second. Ease, which is style of transition. You can find a few more properties. I might show you a few more. And this is a delay. So it will wait for some time and then apply the transition and apply the action. So let's actually do that. We definitely need transform, transition. Yep. Here, for hover effect, I'm changing height, transform, so I'm rotating, and background color. I'm changing 3 properties. But this animation will be only for height. So let's check. See? So we rotate immediately. The color changed immediately, but height changed later, right? It wait for a fraction of the second, a half of the second, and then changed.
Can you explain the different parts of the element one more time?
Yes. So here, you mean transition part or this one? This one.
0.5 is...
Oh, yeah. So 0.5 seconds means that half a second, the whole duration. And the second one is the what the delay, the offset of time should be. And we can play with these numbers. So let's say 2 seconds. Slowly, right? And maybe we want to have like 3 seconds for delay and 0.5 seconds for animation. So if I hover, yep. And if you remove, let's say, put it back. If I remove this one, that means that I apply my style transition to everything what is changing, what you want to change. So now we don't have this weird effect, like jumping effect. Yep. You not always want to have a delay. You just get rid of it. Just straight away. So you can change a few properties and have that smooth animation. Okay. Keyframes. Keyframes is fun. So keyframes allows you to build the whole logic before behind the your animation, behind the scene. I'll show you how to do that. So here we have a keyframe. So this is, I'm not sure that how familiar you are with like programming languages and variables, etc. But you creating kind of a variable, which is kind of a box with a bunch of properties and settings step by step. So here you defining like the whole duration of your animation. Step by step, what do you want to change? You can have here like 1%, 0%, 1%, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can have hundreds of them. You can specify by fractions of percent and specify each thing. So you can do that. So for me here on 0, I have translate. So I'm moving my element, which will start from to the top. So we shift in element on the very beginning. Then we have transform. We're moving this element a bit back to the on a x coordinate, but down, right, to the starting point on y coordinate, and 50% further. Oh yeah, sorry, further to the right, 50%. And so basically, here I'm trying to imitate the moving spin of my element. Rotate across like on a circle. So how to use it? So I just declared some logic. This is just a declaration. And now, if I need somewhere, I can use it by having animation name. So this is my element. So I'm assigning animation name. I'm assigning duration. I can assign like how many steps do I want here. Let me just. So in 20 steps, that should be done. Some delay, etc. And let me show you. Yep. So an initial load, it does 20 steps and finish the animation. But so we can specify all of that stuff in 4 properties. So we can set like a direction that can be reversed. We can set infinite, that will spin forever. And fill mode both is, I believe that's how. Give me a sec. Do we have delay? Yeah, we have delay of 4 seconds. So sorry, if I refresh my page, we need to wait 4 seconds. Right, I haven't assigned the animation itself. Beautiful. So yeah, the starting point is reverse. So it starts from the below. Yeah? No? Come on. I missed again something? Duration. Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Let's wait again. Yeah. And now that will move forever because we have infinite. And why you want to do animation with CSS? Because JavaScript is too heavy for your website. So you don't want to waste resources and like loading time, etc. because it's too heavy and your user will wait for your website. And the truth is that your user will not wait for your website. They will just leave your website. So yes. You can combine all of these properties. So without using separately, you can have like one string. So animation, name of the animation. This is, I believe, the duration. This one is the width, the style of animation. So should it begin very fast and finish slower, etc. So I'll show you a few examples down below. But yeah, for now, so infinite, reverse, both, running, and that will work in the same way. So yeah, here the 1 second was delay. So first is duration. Now it's very slow because we use 5 seconds for the whole animation for one circle. One cycle, sorry. Okay, here. Oh yeah, right, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot to show you that you can pause your animation. So even if you have our element that floating around, when I hover on this, it stops and stay on the same position. If I remove my mouse, it will continue. Boo-hoo. Yeah. So I create a slide effect, so keyframe, which is slide, for all of these guys. And I'll show you every single type of animation of that easy in, easy out, linear, etc. So here, linear, sorry, animation track. So this is default for everyone. So I just added my animation duration 4 seconds and infinite. So 2 seconds there, 2 seconds back, 4 seconds duration, right? They all move together. Now I will start change the type of animation, timing function. For first one is ease, and this is the default one. No changes, because it is a default one. For next one is in. So it starts slowly, but returns, goes then. And even if you think that they move in different pace, they don't. They still finish the whole cycle in 4 seconds, even if it looks that it's not. they touch in the same time. Let's continue. Is out. So this one starts quickly and then moves slower. And what you might think, that's why do I need to use different animations? And this is that feeling when you go to the website and something loads fast. And that feeling you can imitate when you start very quickly and then you slower. So you are, as a user, when you go to the website, you think that, okay, 90%, I will wait for the next 10. And even if it takes like 3 minutes. But if it starts from like 1, 2, you're probably like, nah, I don't want to wait. So you're expecting like, oh, 90% so quickly. It's just some misunderstanding, I will wait. But actually you'll have the same timing. So you're tricking your users and like manipulating their minds. Yeah, this is what we do. So we have a few more. We have is, in, out. So yeah, it starts fast and slower to the end, and like, yeah, bouncing. Let me actually add linear, step end, step with 5 steps, 10 steps, and we have some cubic Bezier, which is complicated, and we have some calculators and like tools to create that weird animations. If I save it, looks like every single element moves in its own pace, but actually the whole cycle, they finish in the same time. Even if it looks like, nah, no, come on, this one's faster. Look at this. You have the same 4 seconds. It feels different, right? Yeah. Okay. So next thing is, so yeah, for transition we have some explanation here. We have basically the which goes where. So transition property. So which thing you want to change? Transition duration, the timing function, which is this is in, is out, linear, etc., and transition delay. Yeah, here you have a list of all these functions, and I believe this one or not? No, probably. Here you can find more information about how to use it, how does it work, etc. So yeah, this is an example. Keyframes we just discussed. So you can use syntax like from to if you have starting point and end point, or you can have percentage, basically 0 and 100 does the same as this one, but you can be more precise and set few more stages, few more steps. Yeah, this is the full list of of values you can set for animation, but you don't need to set all of them. If you need delay, you set delay. If you don't need, you just skip it. If you need set, like have pause, play pause state, you set it. If not, you just don't use it. So yeah, this is example. Timing functions. Animation fill mode, yeah, probably you'll never use it, but keep that in mind. Direction, so you can start from the beginning to end. We have run in pause, which I've already explained, and tools. So this is very fun, because here you actually can use a tool to build your custom. They have a lot of examples, and so refresh. They have a lot of examples. So you can just copy paste their code or build your custom one by using this tool. Parallax. So I think that still we have many people are using Parallax and implementing that with JavaScript. But you can build a simple parallax effect with CSS. This is because we have the property background attachment, and we have scroll, initial, inherit, fixed, and local. We will go through every single property, and I'll show you examples. And here, W3 School, they have. Okay, they don't. They had. Okay, give me a sec. Parallax, CSS, W3 School. Yeah, this one. So if you scroll, you can see this nice effect. To if you want to make it a bit more complicated, you need to use JavaScript. So in one of my projects, I used, besides the background attachment, I used JavaScript to change the background scroll with ratio. So if I'm scrolling the rest of the page for 100 pixels, I'm scrolling the background for only 10 pixels. So it takes that nice effect that it's still moving, but not actually like everything else on the page. I probably can show you. GitHub. Give me a sec. That is me.
Did you say you used
JavaScript. Yes, I'll give a sec. So, portfolio 2.1, I believe. So here, as you can see, the chair moving slightly more than the rest of the page. See that here you can see only part of the leg, and if I'm scrolling, you can see more and more. And if I go here, look on the cup. So this is a bit more complicated parallax, but it's nice. It's a nice effect to have it on the page. Yeah, that was some playing with CSS 2 years ago. Yeah, so parallax. The first one is scroll. So your background stays on the same position. You're just scrolling the content inside. Next one is fixed. So my image stays on the same position. I'm just scrolling my section, the whole page. Look on his eyes. Yeah, and local is basically a default one that it stays everything just scrolling with the page. Yeah. Next funny part, which is really fun, and I actually recently I saw the very weird implementation of how to render black and white image. So I've seen it on a real projects where people, they have the regular image, and when they hover on the image, they make it black and white, and they implement it with just replacing whole image to the black and white, and that means that they upload one more image to your to your computer, to your machine, and waste resources and time of loading. You don't want to do that. You can use filters. We still stick with our dog. So I'll show you a few things. So I'm changing my styles for hover. So if I hover on my dog, You see it's blurred. So this is a filter. This is a CSS that you can just set and blur. So text is clear, but the dog itself is blurred. Next step, you can make your image. Basically, you have an Instagram. Because you have brightness, you can decrease the brightness or increase the brightness. You can use contrast. Yeah. You can combine them. You can combine add contrast, brightness, Instagram. Drop shadow. So yeah, on hover, you just drop in shadow. And why I actually mentioned the black and white, it is pretty popular. So when you hover, I don't need to replace the whole image. I'm just applying filter. Simple as that. Hue rotate, so you're changing the color palette. Yeah. You can invert colors. Probably don't want to do that, but who knows? One day. You can make transparent, so you make it opacity to 25%. So text still the same. So if you have a red text, you'll see your text clearly, but only image will be transparent. Saturate, yeah, punchy colors. Looks like he's burning, right? Burning. And sepia. Come on, retro doggy. Yep. So we can do that with filter. Keep that in mind because it will optimize your website a lot when you start playing with images. Yeah. So here, filters. You have a list of filters. Text gradient. This is funny one. Have you ever thought about that? I want to have the text which looks like a rainbow. How to do that without image? Because you can do image, colorful text, and put as an image. But what if I want to have an actual text with that kind of background? CSS allows us to do that. So, as you can see, I have a text is just black. Background is actually the color that we want to use, the gradient that we want to use. And here, what you do is setting the WebKit clip, so you'll cut everything besides the text, your background besides the text. So now you can see the whole background. That colorful background is behind the text because you've clipped everything. And actually, if I zoom in, nah, it's hard to see. But yeah, so it is behind the text. And what I'm doing now, I'm just make my font color transparent. So now we can see the background. Yep. And you can have the whole rainbow there. Yes. So if I get rid of my background, you can see the text because it's transparent, and you haven't clipped the whole background for this text. Pretty useful. So again, you don't want, because some companies, they still use images for such that kind of text, but again, that means that you are loading image which is heavy and you slow down your website.
Is it clipping the whole width of the background?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So basically, whole your background, it just clipped everything, got rid of it, and left only based on the text. Yep. Okay. Finally, we got to the biggest part of this lesson, CSS Grid. I'm actually not sure how many companies use it on daily basis, because they still, for some reason, a bit careful. So 2 years ago, CSS Grid was like shiny new thing, and everybody was were very excited about that. Like, this is amazing, this is great, but browser doesn't support that. So we can just sit and say that how amazing it is. But now every single browser supports it, and if you go to like, can I use, and use Grid, CSS Grid, as you can see, our good old friend still trying to not support it, Internet Explorer, but it is. So it doesn't support nested grids. So if you have a grid container and you want to have subgrid inside, you can't use it because that will fail. But yeah, the rest of browsers, they are supporting such things, and you shouldn't be worried about that a lot. So let's get to CSS Grid. Here, yeah. So we have, again, two types of elements: CSS Grid containers, CSS Grid items, as the same as we have for Flex. For containers properties, we have display, grid template columns, grid template rows. I mean, I'm sure you don't memorize such things now, because you don't. And I bet I also can say that I don't remember all of them, because if you start typing, you remember that how it's supposed to behave, and you just start typing, and autocomplete will show you the proper syntax for that. You remember some stuff, and yeah, just use it. So we have quite a few properties, the same, identical for Flexbox, like justify content, align content, align items, justify items. So yeah, a few things, they are the similar with Flexbox. For item properties, again, column start, column end, we have justify self, align self, and place self, which is one more. I'll show you in a second the example. Container property. Yeah. So we have a container, and to make your area a grid area, you just use display grid, the same as for display flex, just display grid, or inline grid. Here we have some explanation, but probably it's better to show you all examples, not just text. Give me a second. I'll open my CSS Grid CSS, and I need to open examples. Still examples. Beautiful. Yep. Here. So first thing is grid template columns, grid template rows. You can define. So CSS Grid is two-dimensional system. So you can specify how many rows and how many columns you want to have for each area. And based on that, you can put to each cell your content. So if I hover on this one, as you can see, it shows me some basically grids, right? So we have 4 rows and 1 column for each. Just separating when I hover here in the developer tool. So here I'm saying that I want to have 3 columns. So grid template columns, you defining how many columns you want to have. So first column should be 150 pixels. Second column should be the rest of free space, like use the spare space. And the third one should be 150 pixels. So basically you have some width of the container, like 1000 pixels. You take 150, 150, this one should be 700, right? So as you can see, because we have only 4 divs inside, here you can see that 1 in my developer tool, 1, 2, 3, 4. It just fits them. First goes to the first cell, second goes to the second, third and fourth. And this is empty space because we still have 3 cells, but we don't have enough content for this. Right? You can manually define that that element should be here or there, and you can name each cell. We will get in a second to that point. So yeah, you're just defining, and the second auto will take the spare space. Hey. Hello. Yeah. So you also can use something like AutoFit, and you can dynamically generate columns. So minimum column should be 100 pixels, and maximum is 1 fraction, which will be based on. So you've taken the whole container, and if you have 5 sections, you will divide it by for 5 fractions. So basically for 5 pieces, and 1 fraction is 1 piece. So if you want to make somebody slightly bigger, you define into that particular element to take 2 fractions. And that will be slightly bigger. So here, basically we're just saying that minimum, if you start resizing, because it is responsive, we want to have 100 pixels minimum, right? So if I start resizing, on some point, we'll start creating a new rows. So to do that, I need to have my template rows. So 100 pixels height here, right? And because we have 4 elements, they all stick on the first row. If I start resizing, they shrinking till the point when we get to the 100 pixels for each. Then they will move to the next rows. Yep. Automatically. So with 2 lines of code, you have responsive table for your content. You can define that like min and max. Yep. So here we have probably I can set AutoFit and AutoFill. So fit will take all spare space and try to fit everything there. So it will use whole space, the whole row, the whole width of the container. Fill will automatically generate based on the content inside. That can be wider or smaller, but it will based on the content. But still, we'll keep our min width, which is 100 pixels, and then it will move to another row. So here, let's say I want to, where's my, sorry, give a second, CSS Grid. If I add some text, ooh, okay, it doesn't reflect for the text. Have I done something? Yep. Fill. I believe that, yeah, I can specify the widths for each. So it's based on the smallest one, and we'll keep this width. Yeah. So it doesn't it's not based on the content inside. Sorry for that. Which is weird. So yeah, but anyway, it just stay. What if I change to like 300 pixels? Yeah. So it will like 300, basically it will use 300, and we can resize. So we will have this gap, and you can actually specify that if you do some math inside, you can align everything inside. We will get to the alignment and position to the center, every single element. So if you have a spare space, you can move everything to the center, because for some reason, for example, you have an image and you want to don't want to stretch it. You have like fixed height and width for it. So you just move it to the center. Okay, let's move to the next one, which is grid template areas. So as I said, you can name each element, each cell with some unique, basically you can give some unique name to each cell. And you can use that, I want to have header element here, here, and here. And we will add to our header element grid area header. So let me just specify everything. So grid template areas, yeah, this one. So here, for now, we have 4 elements, right? Again, header, ads, article, footer. By default, they just take full width. What we want to do, actually, we want to define that on the top row, we want to have header. Then the next element, we want to have article, 2 cells, and the third one should be a site, which some maybe ads or whatever, because you build in a website. And the lowest one should be footer for the whole row. And here, you can take your element. So now it does nothing. It just fits more elements. It just puts your elements into the row and generate everything. But now I'm specifying to my header, which is one of my divs, that this element should take the whole header area. And if I refresh, it takes the whole. Yep, no? Confused? Yeah. So, yeah. Let's say you have some box and you just drawing some lines and putting some fences between sections. So you split in this. And for each one, you stick in some label. Like this section is for, I don't know, my toys, for example. Another section is for anything else, like vegetables or whatever. So you just stick in labels. And yeah.
Why did you write it 3 times, actually?
Yeah, because we have we have 3 columns. That is why I wrote here 3 times. If you specify 5 columns, we need to define 5 of them, right? And actually, let's say we have one more for 200 pixels, But I don't want to have, we don't have anything, yeah, we have aside, tiny aside. So header, 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 but I want to have a space between, so I have 2 columns, then the third one is auto, some random space, and the fourth one is 200 pixels. So I want to have my article, which will take first 2, then I want to have a space. So this auto will be just empty. I'll show you here in our browser in a second. And the fourth one aside is 200 pixels. So if I go back here, yeah, we haven't specified. Ooh, header, give a second. What I done wrong? Article. Header, 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 header. Oh, no. One, sorry. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Why? I missed something. Oh, right. And this one. Yeah. So if you define that you want to have 4 columns, that means that on each line you should have 4 elements, 4 cells. You need to define labels for each. You might want to have like put dot and do not, but still. So
you have to declare them in a particular order.
you can't build like a random layout. You can only define with like squares, basically rectangles. So you can't have stuff like header here, header here. You can't do that. So that should build as a rectangle. So if you have header, header, you can have header, header here.
Yeah.
You can't have.
I mean, for example, grid template areas, you declare that first.
Yeah.
Grid template columns, can you like switch the order?
Yeah. Doesn't matter. So here, let's actually define. So for article, I want to use article. For ads, I want to use aside. Yeah. And for footer, I want to use footer. And actually, let's play with them. So header for the whole first row. Then we have aside, space, and aside. Sorry, article, space, and aside. And here we have footer. We need to fix this one to footer, change to footer. And we don't use anything in the last cell. Yeah. So as you can see, here is a gap. And here is a gap. But we can fill it. Just simply adding, let's say, article here. Right? Yeah. And footer probably we also want to have footer. And maybe we want to say that, okay, my article should go down. And potentially a side should be here. And we don't have a footer area at all. We have just article and a side. We need to get rid of our footer element. So now we use only 3 elements, but we have 4 inside. That is why our layout is broken. So if I get rid of this one, so not this one, this one. Yep. Everything on the right place. And go back. Let's go to the footer aside, and yes. So this is basically like template. This is template areas that you can define each cell, put a separate label for it, and use it. So next step. This is areas, grid template. So we have grid template, which will combine basically both. So grid template rows and grid template columns in one line. So gap. This one is actually nice because so grid template. Let's actually go to grid template. This is where I'm just combining grid rows, grid columns. This is what we discussed a few seconds ago. Yep. So for my columns, we have 100 for rows. Sorry, 100. The first row should has 100 pixels. Next one is auto, and the last one is 200 pixels. And as you can see, because we have defined height, we have 100 auto, the spare space, and 200. And for columns is the same. 100 auto 100. We have 100 spare space 100. So gap. Sometimes you want to have that gap between each column because you have some article, you have a site, you want to have some separation, visual separation on your page. And actually this is very like with simple properties like grid column gap, you're creating gap between columns. Easy. And it is responsive, so even if you're resizing, it just has your gap. And you also can define row gap. And yeah, that easy. No margins. And grid gap is basically a combination of both. So this one is row, this one is column. Still the same effect because we have values, the same values. So justify items. As we already know from the CSS, from the Flex. So center. A sec. Justify items. What happened? Oh yeah, justify content. So here we have content inside, and that will justify the content itself. So it will not stretch the whole container to the parent, but it will align your content inside horizontally and not stretching as well. So this is start, this is center, right? And the last one is end. The same as a Flexbox. Next step is align items, which you already also know. So start. So now it's just based on the content inside. Sorry. Give it a sec. Yep. Center and end. Pretty simple. They all move inside their rows. So as you can see, they still keep the grid and just moving inside each row. Yeah, the place items, they just combine again rows and so vertical and horizontal alignment. Yep, center. Just combination of both. So, content. So content start, we have it here. If we put center, we have it the whole stuff. So you actually moving columns. So you're not aligning inside each column or row, you're actually moving columns. Right? So if you don't have on the beginning, if you don't have this stretch, and if you don't you have the fixed width, remember the fraction stuff. If you don't use fractions and you want to be based on the content, you just moving these columns along around your CSS area, grid area. So, and pretty obvious. Stretch, because here we have the fixed width, as you can see, right? If you have one fraction, it doesn't work because it is responsive, so you can't move them. You need to have a fixed width. And space around. Flexbox, hello. Space between. And space evenly. Yep. Identical to Flexbox. For alignment, we have the same. So for alignment, you need to specify rows height. So if your container is taller than all content inside, because your content, for example, your container has 400 pixels, and you have 3 elements inside, and each element has 100 pixel height. That means that you have some spare space, and now you can align it vertically. You can move these rows from top to bottom. So yeah, center, the same stuff. We have end, stretch, we have space around, space between, and space evenly. Identical things. And here we have combination. Again, the same for as we have for the first one. Okay, auto columns. So that might be fun. You can use also auto columns. That means that you'll generate columns if you have fixed widths, fixed height, sorry. So if we here columns, if I remove a few elements from here, give a second, I'll show you. So this is our grid. As you can see, we have the fixed width for each, and we have some amounts of elements inside. So because we have 4 vertically, and now we have 10 elements to get all together, when you add the element, it will create a new column. For now we have 3. If I remove one, so now we have 2 columns. Yeah, so you dynamically generate columns. And in the same way, you can just add and create more columns based on the content inside. The same stuff we have for rows. Absolutely the same. If we have more elements, as you can see, because the parent height is fixed. So where is this one? Main height. That shouldn't. Give a sec. So if you have outer rows, columns, column gap, row gap. Why? That's supposed to create you a few new rows. Give a second, I definitely missed something. Create outer rows. and min height. Oh, sorry. No, I'm not selecting. I'm definitely blind. I'm missing something. So if you add few more elements. Yeah, sorry. Just blind. So if you add few more elements, you dynamically generate rows based on the content. Yep. Autoflow is a tricky one. So here you can specify for each element where to start, and it will look for for this place in your grid and try to fit itself there. So here, for my item 3, which is this one, I am defined that should start from row 2, right? So that is why even if I have space here, it just move there. We just move it there. And sorry, if I uncomment and define that the column should be second, we just remove basically from the flow and put it to this position, right? And the rest the force will go after it. So you can define specific position for it, for each element. And one more funny thing that is actually useful. So imagine that you have a bunch of images with different shapes, some small images, big images, horizontal and vertical images. And I bet that you never position all of them on the right place with position left, right, and never. I mean, you might get to the Mars sooner than position all of them. But with CSS Grid, you just use, hey, autoflow dents everything for me. One line. Simple, right? So you have a very weird bunch of elements on the page, and you just say into your CSS Grid to the container that dents every single element as you can. Basically, you think yourself and make it the best decision you can do. And with this dents, just fit everything. Yep. That is why people really enjoy CSS Grid, because you can build your layout without margin, position left, why it's not responsive. And yeah, try to fix every single width, every single screen size, mobile, tablet, landscape, portrait, right? You just don't care, because if I start resizing all of that, it will refactor everything for me. Yeah. And I can zoom out a bit, probably, so you can see everything. So if I start, it fits everything and it looks nice. Yeah. So now we have grid items. I think that we can go through them very quickly. So again, you can specify for like grid. We have a few properties, which is grid column start, grid column end, and the same for rows. So imagine that you have a container with some height and width, and you want to, and you have one child inside, and you want to specify where to start and where to finish, where take the place basically. So here in my example, I'm saying that, hey, start from column 2. And it starts from there. And let's say, okay, but you need to end yourself before column 5. And we have it. So now it takes 3 columns, right? If I inspect one, sorry. If I inspect this one, we have 5 columns, and we are starting from 2nd and going till 5. So the 4th is the last one. Now I'm saying, okay, beautiful. Let's start actually from 2nd row, not from the 1st row, but from the 2nd. Easy. And you say that, okay, that's bad. Now grow a bit and take 2 rows. Yeah. And you might think that, nah, I want to position a bit left. So start from first one. And maybe keep the same size. Yeah. And it's still responsive. So you do whatever you do is still on the same position. Yeah. Okay. Here we have again, we can combine start and end for columns and the same for rows. This is just a shortcut for the previous properties. So justify self, it works as it is working for Flex. It is justifying self inside the cell. So we have a lot of items, but I'm just justifying this one. I don't want to justify all of them, just one. So I selected justify, which is this one. And we can justify to end, to center. Yeah, the same stuff, but it's scoped into one cell. The same with alignment. I mean, yep, same stuff. You already know that. And place. So here, ooh, wait a second. Why is complaining? Ooh, that doesn't support by myself. Oh yeah, this is just a property. Sorry, my bad. So yeah, you can combine previous two properties into one by place self and align self and justify self. So center and stretch. And here we have center and stretch. Yep. I understand that we have too much for one day. I bet that because I also teaching in one coding bootcamp twice a week, 3 times a week, and I think that they will cover the same content in like 2 months, maybe. They pretty chilled. So yeah, our lessons is pretty intense, but if you want to get that, you just spend more time at home. We have our Slack, and you can ask questions there. That is why we have our projects, where you can play with all of that stuff. And yeah, it is intense. It's not like regular bootcamp. If they saying that our bootcamp is pretty intense, don't trust them. Like, meh, go to these workshops that we have on Tuesdays. So yeah. Yeah, this is it for our CSS Grid. We have design for our next page, which is product details page. And you have all assets in images. And you have design inside the design folder in the images. So you have, this is a desktop version, this is the mobile one, and this is the tablet. So try to implement this design with CSS Grid. That should be easy because, I mean, this is CSS Grid. You just defined all properties and just moving your elements across these containers, right? So here, if you try to think about this one, pretty obvious, right? So we have one column, second column, third column, 3 columns. We have, based on the most busiest section, you take rows. So here you have probably 1 row, second row, third row, fourth, fifth, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. And so 8 rows, 3 columns. And for third column, you define some widths. For second column, you define some widths. And for the third one, you might have like a responsive one, which is auto or whatever. And you'll see how easy it is to build a responsive stuff with CSS Grid and play with all numbers. Again, in Slack, you can ask anything. I'm happy to help you there and answer to your questions. Last thing, do you remember? Because the last time I forgot to ask you. Drive. Because I know that if I forget to ask you now, I will never get a feedback. So please, I'm sharing. This is the wrong one. Sorry. Give me a second. Too many slugs. Somewhere. Slides. Form. This one. I believe this is the right one. Yep. Can you spend 2 minutes to fill this form now? It is in Slack. If you're not in Slack, please come to me and I'll add you to our Slack now. Much appreciated. Next lesson, we will have, basically, we will spend 2 hours for building the page together. Next time is the last lecture. Yeah, and we will spend 2 hours. We will build some, maybe we can build PDP, this PDP that I just showed the design together with CSS Grid and try to play with it.
Are you using more Grid or Flexbox?
Flexbox. Because, yeah, again, I'm not really work with UI, like UI CSS HTML. I always, yeah, I basically now I'm working more with React and build logic and like implementation of all that stuff. But yeah, my company kind of, they call it efficiency. I call it that lazy things because they just use Material UI library for like shadows, stylings, etc. Just Material UI. Because it's efficient for them, they just can use their components. But I know that we've spent many hours when we try to customize it, because you don't have an access to everything and you start looking way around how to fix it and how to implement your feature to this template. And sometimes it is a nightmare. So yeah. Sorry? Yeah, lesson 6. Lesson 6, by the way. So yes. I will share, actually I started uploading the video from the last lesson. Haven't finished it because our tiny videos that we record takes only 120 gigs each, because it's 4K 60 FPS. So yeah. I hope that I will upload it tomorrow, and maybe I'll render and upload today's one tomorrow as well. So yeah, hopefully. Thank you. And yeah, by the way, I'll send one more form here, which will have 2 questions. Your name, first name, last name, and lessons you've been in this course, you visited on this course. Because next time we'll bring you our certificates. Yep. Thanks. Thank you.